Okay, good day for all my classmates from class Khusus 2, and then the honorable lecturer, Mr. or Professor Warsono, and then I am Muhammad Didiman Faluthi. I am now become the presenter for unit 13, and then the material is about the notation for simple proposition, and then the discussion will be divided into two main parts. The first is annotation itself, and then the second is about simple propositions. And then, as we know that this material is taken from Semantics, a course book, second edition by James R. Horford. And this presentation is made for semantic class on Friday, 17th April 2020. Okay, I will start this presentation with equation. Actually, I use some equation for this or some slide here. The first question is, can a proposition be ambiguous? As we know that when we find an ambiguous sentence or words, it will need some analyzing about the meaning. But when we are talking about proposition, it actually the answer is no. So the proposition is not ambiguous. So the question is why. Just because proposition has dealt with logical notation, has treated in great depth logical notation as a formula, and then the formula here, just like other forms, like when we say something, it is become an utterance, and then when we write something, it will become sentences. And then notation here is the formula that can represent about the proposition. And then the proposition itself, just like a simple sentence that has one predicator, and then also in which logic has in fact been extremely selective in the proposition that has dealt with for unambiguously. So proposition becomes has dealt with logical notation, and then it become ambiguously. For the next slide, do you know what that logical formula provides notation for ambiguously representing the essentials of proposition? That logical formula provides notation, and then it's become ambiguously from the parts of the essentials of propositions. And then next we assume that simple proposition like simple sentences have just one predicator. So from the beginning of this discussion, we have to know that the simple proposition will be or will have just one predicator. And then when we are trying to write about the notation of simple proposition, it will be written in the capital letters for a predicator of the simple propositions. And then the arguments of the predicators we represent by a single lowercase letter. Just like, or we can putting one of these letters before the predicator are just like subject and the others. Anything that is not a predicator or referring expression is simply omitted from logical notation. Because logical notation is a formula, so it will just only show the predicator and then it will omit other things outside the predicators. And then how to write a notation for simple propositions. I have some examples here from the book. Abraham died, so it will be written Abraham become A and then died become die. It back to the first verb or verb 1 form. And then Fido is a dog, so Fido it will be written F for, and then dog as the predicator. Ted loves Alice. Ted become T and then loves become love, and then Alice just write A for the initial of the name. Bill introduced Mary to Jack. Bill become P and then introduce, and then Mary become M and then J. Jack become G. Okay, now we practice the instruction from the book that we have to translate the following into this simple notation, like Arthur dreamed. Arthur we can write with A and then dreamed just dream, verb 1 form. And then Bill gulped, B gulp, and then Charlie swore, C swear. This is just like an initial for the names when we are trying to spell some letter, like C for Charlie and then B for Bill and then A for Arthur. Patrick cursed. Patrick become P and then cursed become a verb 1 form, curse. Ben cycles. Ben become B and then cycles, cycle. Do you have any comment? Okay, I have some comments here. There's formulae are very bare, stripped to nothing but names and predicators. So this is just like a formula or logical notation. It will just only write names and predicators. Not only predicators but also the names will be written in a lower letter. And then the most serious principle ground, is the traditional concentration of logic on truth that eliminates elements. That's what I mean, that it will omit or elements like for P articles, tense markers, and certain preposition. For example, in Bill introduced married to Jack, to here will be omitted. Prepositions which appear to make no significant contribution to the logical sense of a sentence are omitted from logical formulae representing the proportion constant, because the concentration here to the proportion itself, so the things or preposition which appear to make no significant contribution are omitted. Expression like look for, look at, look after as single predicates when they contain prepositions that contribute in an important way to the sense of the sentence. So when we find preposition with the verb like this, like look for, look at, look after, it will be written in a full verb. Okay, I have example here for logical aspect of meaning focusing on. Winston is a nephew of Randolph, so we can write Winston become W and then nephew become a predicator, and Randolph just write the initial R. Stanley is crazy about Beethoven. Stanley, we can write here just initial S, and then crazy become predicator using capital letter, and then Beethoven just write P. Ellen is envious of James. Ellen just write A, E, and then envious become predicators, and then James just write G. Margaret is looking for Billy. Margaret just write M in the lower letter case, and then looking for, look for Billy, just write B. Margaret is looking at Billy. Margaret just write M as the initial, and then looking at, we write look at as a verb 1 form for the predicators of the sentence, and then Billy B. Walter is beside Harriet. Walter, we write W, and then beside become predicator, and then Harriet just write H. Okay, I have another practice. Write formulae for the following. I have some example. Frida is shorter than Ellen. We can write in the logical notation Frida F, shorter using a capital letter as the predicator, and then omitted Ellen, just write E. Gil is proud of Kate. Gil, we can write G in the lower letter case, and then proud become predicator, and Kate of omitted, and then Kate become K. Go in the lower case letter. Ireland is to the west of Scotland. Ireland become I, and then west the predicator. Scotland just write as in the lower case letter. Dublin is the capital of Ayr. Dublin become D, and then capital using capital letters, and error, just write E. Okay, I also have additional comments because there are some comments in the book that we can learn. That the first is, we omit any indication of tense from logical formulae. The tense also will be omitted from a logical formulae or logical notation. And I have also this, the second comment is equative and non-equative or versus non-equative. In our logical formulae, we will represent the identify predicate with an equals sign, and then we will simply omit anything corresponding to any other use of the verb be. For examples, Clark Kent is Superman. We can use equals here. Clark Kent become C and K, and then equal Superman, because this is an equal sentence. And then for non-equative sentence, Clark Kent is reporter. So this is like other or previous logical notation. Clark Kent CK reporter is just like a predicator of the sentence. Now we practice. Write logical formulae using equals and sequences of lowercase letters for names. I have some example here. Dr. Jekyll was a gentleman. The doctor become D, and then Jekyll G, DJ gentleman, was a should be omitted. And then Mr. Hyde was a villain. Mr. become M, and then Hyde H, villain become a predicator. I have also, this is an equative sentence. Dr. Jekyll was Mr. Hyde. So we will write DJ equal MH. And Jack the Ripper was the Duke of Clarence. Jack become J, Ripper R, and then Duke of Clarence become DC. Mary Clark was a sister of Clark Kent. Mary Clark become MC, and then sister become a predicator, so it written using a capital letter, and then Clark Kent say K. I have definition here. Every simple proposition is representable by a single predicator drawn from the predicates in the language. Simple proposition by a single predicator. A number of arguments drawn from the names in the language. This become an argument. No formula for a simple proposition can have two or more predicators, and it cannot have anything which is neither a predicate or name. Examples: well-formed formula versus not well-formed formula. We can find here J love M. This is a well-formed formula for simple proposition. And then if just G and M, it is not well-formed formula because it contains no predicator. And then how about J idolize a door? Not a well-formed formula. It contains two predicators. So a well-formed formula is a predicator for a simple propositions. J and H love M. This is also not well-formed formula. It contains something and which is neither a predicator nor a name. Now we practice. Are the following formulae well-formed for simple propositions? When we see or when we read J sen HM, yes, because this formulae has just one predicator. I send book M or J send book M. No, because has two predicators. And then how about J uncle F? Yes, because only one predicator. And then when J brother F father, no, because there are two predicators that are written in capital letter. Okay, for the summary, I think it will be the end of the slide of my presentation. A system logic must have its own semantics, a set of principles relating its formulae to the situation described. System logic have its own semantics as a set of principles relating formulae to the situation described. And then the rule given above for simple formulae consisting of a name and a one-place predicate is part of such a set of principles, a semantics for logic. So the logical notation become a set of principles, or we can say that it is a semantics for logic. So this is the last of my presentation. I tried here to write a logical notation like D is daddy, thanks to you or your attention. And then we will see W and then C, the predicator, will omit it, and then meet after C. We will see, or I mean meeting after C is corona. Meeting after corona. And then we stay at VW, stay at predicator H home. And then you are healthy, Y healthy, and then you stay safe. You stay safe. They become two predicator. So thank you very much for the presentation. I hope that we are in the good condition and also be healthy in our daily life. Thank you very much. I close and goodbye.